Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here for the Black Coopnomics Academy. I'll just go ahead and introduce NDCC a bit and our lovely speaker for tonight, Patrice. So thank you for joining today. Just to go over some of the ground rules, we are recording this and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. Please make sure your microphone is muted to prevent background noise. If you're invited to speak, remember to unmute yourself. I'll also unmute you if there's any trouble, technical difficulties. And then once you're done speaking, if you can mute yourself. If you have any questions, use the chat function for the relevant questions or comments. Or you could also raise your hand and I'll make sure to unmute you or you can go ahead. If you're speaking or asking a question, please try to keep it brief to respect everyone's time and allowing the presenter to manage the time and to follow their agenda, particularly during the Q&A sessions, which we'll have after Patrice is done with the presentation. And then we would appreciate if you would not record any part of the webinar without permission from the host or the presenter because some slides are confidential. And then for upcoming events that NDCC is doing, we have our financial management workshop on the 20th of December from 2 p.m. to 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. In 4115 Frederick Avenue, Baltimore. Registration is now open for that. So we also have the QR code and you can go ahead and register for this workshop. We also have the upcoming session of the Black Coopnomics Academy from March 6th to May 8th. From 6 to 9 p.m. And it sort of goes over the history of Black cooperative movements, empowering equity, Black voices, and leadership in the cooperative movement, making sense of grant writing, proposal, and like the entire process of that. It's a very helpful process that I definitely do recommend. And then we also have registration open for that as well. And I also have the QR code in the flyer, and then I'll make sure to add it to the chat as well. And then please make sure to follow us on all of our social media to stay updated on our YouTube channel. We'll also upload the recording for this. And then we have an Academy feedback form, so we would appreciate if you would fill that out after each session. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Patrice Lockhart Anthony. Patrice is the immediate past president of Green Star Cooperative Market. She was and remains the first African American to head the organization in its 45 plus years of history. She continues to address the challenges through her company, Black Label Consulting and Coaching, whose vision mission is building and supporting anti-racist perspectives and developing curriculum that moves the vision forward. Patrice is a trained experienced mediator, facilitator, consultant, coach, and strategic planner with additional expertise in board development and governance. She's co-ops for over 30 years. So thank you, Patrice, for joining us tonight, and I'll hand over the conversation to you. Just give me a second so I can share your presentation. But until then, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself or anything else about yourself you want to tell everyone. I think you're muted right now, Patrice.
Because the aquarium is behind me. It's good to be here, everyone. I hope you're well, if a little frustrated over current events. That's one of the many reasons that I'm happy to be doing this course this evening. I have long believed that cooperation and collectivism is the way for us to advance, particularly in a country where its very beginnings were about patriarchy and misogyny and racism. That's just before we were the United States of America, that was true. So how do we do that? Well, one, we follow our history. Cooperation isn't new to us. It's not new at all. We've been doing this for ages. It is a tactic, a resource of people who have been oppressed and want to survive and thrive. That has always been the case around the world as long as humans have existed. And you will also find it in the animal kingdom. So This is what we do. Sorry, I'm turning this around. I have worked in and for racial equity and justice for approximately 3/4 of my 64, and in a couple of months, 65 years. I've worked mainly with co-ops and with food systems. So my concerns are around racial and economic equity and justice. And while I look at other things as well, as you all know, the intersections are always there. So race and gender, race and ability, race and identity. I am also a facilitator and a transformative mediator and a writer. I'm guided always by my ancestors. My mom is one of them now. So I get to talk to my mom about what I'm doing and how it needs to be done. And I have a deep and abiding faith that combines with prayer and constant learning and an abundance of hard work. And I say to you, as I always say to others when doing this work, Ashe Salah, which for those of you who don't know, simply means as it is spoken, so shall it be. And may that be the mantra for the work that we're going to be doing over the next while. That is my contact information at the bottom of that first slide there. And next slide, please. Can you put it up so that we all can see it, share it, so that we can all see the slides?
I think everyone should be able to see because I'm sure you can.
No, we can't see.
Oh, you can't? Sorry, one second. Sorry about that.
Okay. There we go. That's the one. So this particular course, I'm not going to present for very long. I'm not going to talk very long. I decided fairly early on that because this was about personal stories, it would be best if I simply did a spiel, if you will, about cooperation and inclusivity, and of course, racial dimensions and divides, and then opened it up for people. So I have slides that have divided up how we're going to talk. And I would simply use my skill sets of facilitator and mediator to keep us on track and moving forward. Is there anyone who has any urgent concerns with that path? Nope. Okay. So cooperation isn't just a radical concept as we know participation today. It shouldn't be a radical concept, but it is today because we live in a country that uses capitalism as its economic model. And capitalism, as you know, is a model that pits people against each other in order to get what they need, which is anti-humanistic. Cooperation is also a healing source from my perspective for where we need to go in this country generally, and specifically when it comes to African Americans. So even as we heal this vast racial divide that has not only split Black and white, but has split Black folks themselves, our communities, 27% of registered Black voters who actually voted, 27% of that group voted to put Trump in office and for the policies and things that have been espoused by his team. We are not of a single mind. And so we need to talk to each other. And our personal stories will help us do that. But I believe that cooperation is the way that will lead us forward and help us not just survive, but thrive. And a part of that is dealing with ways in which in the past we did cooperate, we did survive, we did thrive, but then we still came under fire, literally, from other groups, and in particular, white Americans. So moving on from that, how do our personal stories, how will they connect us to paths for cooperation and progress? And one of the things we have to do is figure out what we mean when we say cooperation and progress. Next slide, please. So here we're talking about the racial divide, and what I want to do, there's approximately more here now. So instead of calling on you guys, I'm just going to open it up for you to volunteer your own personal story on the racial divide, particularly when it comes to history, truth, justice, and healing. And we're going to take about 15 minutes in this section before we move on to the next. So this is personal stories about the racial divide as it is impacted by history, truth, justice, and healing. So hang on one second. Okay. Okay. Let's, who would like to go first?
So when you say personal stories, are these like stories that have stuff that have taken place in history?
No,
Okay.
personal stories. So if
That's what I thought
if it's personal as it relates to maybe someone in your family or a family friend or something like that, yes, but let's make this section is personal. What you know of the racial divide historically with regard to truth, justice, healing, because you know there are stories in our families, there are stories in our circles, in our communities. You understand where I'm going?
Yes, I do. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody want to share? Really?
I think I just need a moment to think about it.
Okay. Anyone else? Was that Paulette talking?
No, it was Joanna.
Oh, Joanna, hi. I can't see you guys. Oh, because a lot of you aren't on video. Okay. Does anybody else want to go? How about I'll start with a personal story about my dad, who is a military vet. He first joined the Army, and after a couple of years left the Army and transferred to the Air Force. He fought one tour in Korea and 2 tours in Vietnam. When he was in Korea, my dad was born in Oklahoma, but is ostensibly, he's from California, San Bernardino, California. That's where the family moved to when he was quite young. And McDonald's was founded in San Bernardino. And when my dad went off to fight in Korea as a member of the last segregated unit of troops, they fought, they came home, he and a friend of his, and all they could think about was getting a McDonald's hamburger. And so they came home and they went to McDonald's, straight to McDonald's, still in uniform, only to be greeted with, if you want something from us, you have to go around to the back door. My father hasn't stepped inside a McDonald's since then. Now, we have lots of those stories in Black culture where we do what we think of as the right thing. We don the uniform, we fight for others' freedom, we fight for our own freedom, we fight for American freedom, only to be beaten, bruised, bloody, blinded, killed for having done that. What happened to my dad and his friend is really the least of these things, but it's still very traumatic. That's one of the personal stories, and there are stories like that throughout this, that's about history, it's about truth. It could be about justice and healing, but there are things that have to take place in order for healing and justice to happen. Does anybody else have a story now?
I don't know if this all works. Sorry.
This is Marie.
Okay.
Marie?
Yeah.
Okay.
So many stories, but the one I think that's the quickest is my mother was the first Black woman to go to Vanderbilt in the hard sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And when she went there, actually it was on a program, they asked her to come, but when she came, the professor said, I know who you are, I know why you're here, and you already have an F. Well, my mother persevered because she was such a nerd, you know, she could care less about that. So she persevered. And when one of the students who had been in an accident and had missed class for like a month needed help, the professor came to her and asked her, you have the best notes and the best tests and the best papers in the whole class. And would you be willing to share yours with whoever the guy's name was? And so, you know, we have you're right. I have so many stories from the Red Cross, you name it, back in the 40s and 30s, but that's the quickest one I could give.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Can I just have some curiosity? Did she give her notes and did she get better grades?
She already had an A in the class, and she definitely gave the notes to him. I mean, this is like we're talking like 1947, 1948 or something like that, 1950 or something like that. And so
but I thought you said they were going to give her an F.
No. Before they even started class, before class even began, he told her that she had failed the class.
So it seems that what happened is her performance persuaded him to give her her righteous grade.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else have a story that's about the racial divide and that we can draw from?
Well, I don't know if this one fits because I'm in the UK and my mom came from Jamaica, and I don't know how this fits though, but she was going to go for a job, I think on the buses or something, because that's what they wanted They wanted jobs to be filled by people coming from the Caribbean.
Mm.
And she went to the dentist, and the dentist pulled all her teeth.
Oh,
The dentist pulled all her teeth so she couldn't get the job.
so the dentist knew that she was going for this job
I think so, because he pulled all her teeth. So
and
she's
decided to pull all her teeth, and that's not what she was there for.
correct.
I think that qualifies.
Yeah, that qualifies.
Okay.
That qualifies. Absolutely, that qualifies. All our stories qualify, really. All our stories qualify. Hand up. Carolyn, question?
A quick story I'll share. And
Okay.
Paulette, yeah, that definitely qualifies.
Mm.
It's one that my auntie shared with me. She was touched. This is like back in the 1930s, and she shared how each evening they would come in from, working they had their own farm, and she'd watch her dad read one newspaper after the other. And then he would get up and say, I'm going to Ebony. It was the little country store to get one Pepsi. And she said he did this every evening. And so eventually he asked Annie, you want to go with me? And she did. And when she was in they had the horse and buggy kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as they approached the old country store, she noticed that there was a gathering of men on one corner of the store. And she was wondering, what's going on here? And so as they got closer to the store, she said, Papa just leaned over to her and he said, you just be quiet and I'll go into the store and get you a nab and a pop. So she sat there patiently. He went in the store, came back, and then he came back to her and he said, I've got one more thing to do. And she's like, what in the world is he doing? And she watched him go over towards the crowd of men at the corner of the building. And as he approached, it seemed as if though the crowd was waiting for him and he kind of melded into the crowd. And then she started to listen as he was the voices, and all of the voices kind of settled down, and it was just one voice she heard then, and it was her father. It was Papa, and the words that he was saying started to sound familiar to her. And actually, what he was doing was Papa would go to that store, country store, each evening and share with the men that were gathered at the side of the building about the newspaper articles he had read that day, because he was one of the few in the area that could read and write. And so he
Yeah.
was the carrier of the news.
Yes. 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 Because in all the negative, we always manage to get out the positive and the joy as well, and share it around. I love us.
Yes.
I
Yes.
do.
He didn't
I
keep it
do.
to himself. He didn't keep it to
Right.
himself. What he knew, he shared.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Pamela?
Yeah, I was the last one to have my hand up so the other people could go first, They had their hands up before me.
I think, let me go down because I
Yeah,
can only
everybody had
get at a
one
time on my screen. Corita? Okay, your hand went back down. So Tamika?
Hi. Yeah. So I think maybe mine are they're not as maybe not traumatic to and to a degree, but I was a child when they happened, so I'm gonna share these very quickly. So my first experience with racism that I didn't know was racism at the time was probably when I was in second or third grade. And I was walking home from school because my mom was late. And I had two bald-headed, maybe 13, 14-year-old white dudes chasing after me, calling me the N-word.
Mhm.
And I had no idea what was going on. I grew up in a race neutral household, so we didn't really talk about racism. Although my parents did face racism, they didn't talk about it. So that's like my first experience with racism was, well, my first outward experience with racism was that. And I just remember my mom, pulling up, saw me running and crying, and got me in the car, tried to calm me down real quick and rolled down the window and said some choice words to the young man. Right. So remembering her coming in as my savior, but even after that, it took me until almost college to really start understanding about racial issues because my parents still never talked about it. So that's one.
Wow.
But my first actual real big experience now that I've grown older and looked back on it with racism was being the only Black person, and I lived in England as a child, and so I was the only Black person in my class, and my white female teacher called me stupid in front of everybody for making a mistake, which, they don't normally talk to you like that as a kid, right? But called me stupid
Right.
for making a mistake in front of the class. And then I remember also shortly after then having to move over into a school on the Air Force base because my father was Air Force. So an American school on the Air Force base. But yeah, just kind of looking back and recognizing that very early on, often Black people are faced with racial issues, even if we
Yeah.
don't understand what they are.
Yes.
Yeah,
Often,
yes.
which is why 27% voted for Trump.
Yeah.
You have to be able to see it. You have to be willing to see it.
Right. And call it out. Know what it is, right? You have to be able to articulate what's going on.
That is correct. You can't even cooperate until you understand that.
Yeah.
Naima, and then you're going to be you and Pamela will be our last ones before we move on to the next pit.
Okay. So I have a couple stories about my parents, but I'll just keep it to one. Or my grandparents, their families. So both of them were involved in integration experiments in New York State. A lot of people think that New York State doesn't have racism,
Oh, please.
but
I live in New York State.
my grandfather actually moved to New York State as an electrical engineer back in the 1950s. And no one would sell him a house. He had to build his own house. And when he did build that house, there were people, threatened to bomb the house. And he actually helped create the first supercomputer, which you still use today for every bank transaction. First integrated hardware, software, computer, but it's not something that he talked about with his grandchildren. I'm actually an electrical engineer, and I didn't know because I think that it was very traumatic for him to talk about that, his whole experience. And I didn't find out about it until he passed away, that how much he contributed to that project. So so anyway, that's and my father went through a lot as a young child who was, the only Black kid in his school, a lot of violence, and my mother as well, that maybe they connected on that. Because my grandfather was the first Black minister of a white congregation in New York State and in the United Methodist Church in the 1950s. And my mother was attacked a lot as a child in school. And people left, most people in the church left because, this Black man isn't telling me what to do. So, and I think it's interesting. People think, that's a thing of the past, and these people are still alive.
It's not a thing of the past. We just proved that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Pamela, did you still want to go?
Yes, I just didn't want to be rude to the people who had their hands up before mine.
Oh, no,
but I
you're
still
fine.
want,
You're going to be our
yes, I still,
on this section.
yes, I still want to go. Yes, what I was going to say, that there is covert and overt racism.
Yes.
And in New York State, you have both of them. And sometimes when you point it out to our counterparts, sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. I'll give you an example. It's like I was in Rite Aid's one day, like this is like 2024, it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I purchased something, and the person gave me the receipt. I always get a receipt, I don't care what it is, and I walked out the store. So it was like one of those long receipts that they print. And while I was walking out the store, there was a white man. He sort of like walked out, how you can walk out the same time that somebody else walks out. It was sort of like that. And when I walked, and when we walked out, the buzzer rang, right? Like, like say for instance, a person didn't pay for something. So I was almost getting into my car, and then the store clerk came out and she says, "Oh, the buzzer rang. We have to go back in." And then a white man says, "No, it's me. They were not able to take the tag off of my item," right? And so here I have the receipt in my hand, right? And she can see it because it's one of those long receipts, and he has no receipt. Plus, the knob thing is still on his item. Now, what's interesting about that, when he says, "Oh, it's me," why didn't she command? How does she know that he did not take that item? He had no receipt. Why didn't she command that he go back, or demand that he go back in the store, and prove that he purchased that item? Now, the thing about the racial divide there is she felt comfortable with me, even with a receipt right in my hand. She felt comfortable because only thing I could think of was my race, right? Why can't both people walk out? So my point is that racism is so baked into this system until it looks natural to people. Just to profile Black people just because you're Black, and you might be doing the right thing, and somebody might have not done the right, but yet you're still called on a carpet with a higher standard. It's just like Trump and Kamala. Kamala is called on a higher standard. She has to do everything 100%, but yet he has 34 felonies, and yet he's okay. And nobody's called. So I was just saying, racism sometimes is overt and covert, but yet, we, as you're saying, we have to recognize what it is and understand and then call it out. So I just want to make that.
Absolutely. Can I have the next slide, please? This is often how it happens. And there is always so much more to it, but we only have until 8 o'clock. So we're not going to be able to cover everything. We do want some personal stories. I want to hear, I hope that by 8 o'clock, I have heard everyone speak at least once. What we're going to talk about next is race-related inequities that plague the co-op sector today. So food, housing, childcare, et cetera, all of the food, housing, childcare, that co-ops exist in those areas. Here in Ithaca, New York, we have food co-ops, we have artisan co-ops, artists. We have, actually we have 2 artisan co-ops. One tends to be more painters, people who paint, people who draw. The other one tends to be people who are craft artisans. They make things, whether it's from wood or clay or glass or whatever. We also have childcare co-op. We have housing co-ops here. I imagine there will be more over time. It is a small city that labels itself as progressive and liberal and believes in these sorts of things. The issue that I want to bring here today is that what I mentioned earlier is that co-ops, and more often than not, the white-led co-ops tend to forget that they are intended to be radical. And they end up just being another model of a capital-based grocery store. But cooperation arises out of need as much as desire, sometimes more than desire. And it takes radical conversation, radical coming together, radical practices to cooperate in a way that brings us together, keeps us together, heals us together, and allows us to move forward together. Not because there is something radical in and of cooperation, but because we exist in a system that has socially conditioned us to not cooperate unless it is by simply telling us what the wealthy, the elite, and the politicians tell us we're supposed to be doing. That is the basis of patriarchy. That is the basis of misogyny. That is the basis of racism, is to be told what to do and then to follow those things and to not rock the boat. That is social conditioning. So while we tell stories, American stories, Horatio Alger type stories where you pull yourself up by your bootstraps as an individual and you work really hard as an individual and you get rich as an individual all by yourself as if no one else has helped you along the way. Those are myths. Those are myths, and they work against community. And so if we're going to talk about community, if we're going to talk about advancing cooperation, advancing Black economics, advancing how we choose to survive, sustain, thrive, then we have to start thinking about radical ways in which that is done. Now, I'm not talking about taking up weapons. There are people who talk about that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is much more radical. Love, belonging, acceptance, a willingness to listen to everyone's voices and ideas, the willingness to actually see each other. Those are the things that will create and sustain a community. Those are the things that invite cooperation and sustain the cooperation. That's why the cooperative principles are what they are, which, if you compare them to Kwanzaa principles, they are very, very much alike. So when we talk about race-related inequities that plague the co-op sector today, let's talk about them with this notion in mind of this is what is, so this is the inequity that is race-related, and this is what we may need to do to move beyond that. Does everyone understand what I'm asking? Just a quick yes or no. Yes, Marie. So, and then again, this is open, this is all about who we are as individuals and a group and those wanting community. So speak from your heart, from your gut, notions, ideas that you had that maybe you've never shared with anyone, ideas that you've shared that maybe you didn't feel listened to, but ways to move forward and make this real. Okay, put your hands up your little hand up if you want to share with us right now. This is going to go for 20 minutes. Okay, y'all, do I have to go first again?
Did raise their hand, I think.
Someone did? Okay, I have to keep moving back across the screen. Nope, there are no hands up.
My hand is up. This is Marie.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the kind of question that I have been asking myself since I have conceived of the idea for my cooperative, because a lot of people, you know, the conclusion that I've come to is that if we are socialized and acculturated toward that rugged individualism, which is not constructed to really make us successful as individuals, then we have to somehow create, whether it is television shows, movies, short stories, pictures, whatever it is, just like everything else is marketed to us, we have to find ways to meet people where they are, to market these concepts and these ideas to them. And, you know, whether it is short stories where, you know, you've got, I mean, I don't know, you know, like character development, where the success in the story comes when people actually work together, and not just in a Pollyannic way, but in a real way. You know, television shows, films, whatever it takes, children's books, you know, that kind of thing. Not only that, you know, if you have a directory, clearly label something that is a cooperative. One of the things about cooperative websites when I was first learning about this was that they all have an "our story" very clearly marked in their menu. And reading their stories, you see what's successful, but you also get to see what's not successful. And you have to dig to find out those things that are not successful. And by and large, it is because people do not embody these concepts that we all want to experience. You know, and on top of that, it's like you've got people with very good ideas, but unless they have an educational component to help them deal with the challenges, they will fall by the wayside. I've actually been listening to people who they are interested in cooperatives, but they're actually talking about competition and not giving away your ideas, and it makes no sense, because if we're going to cooperate, it's not about being Pollyanna. It is literally about public sourcing, crowdfunding, crowd thinking. And that's what's going to make it work, because everyone participates. And so as a result, everyone wants there to be a success.
Love it. Thank you, Marie. Now, someone, I'm gonna, whoops, I just saw a hand up. Where did it go? Karita, did you have your hand up? I'll take that as a no. I thought I saw another hand up. Okay. I want us to move forward off of what Marie was just saying. So you can share a personal story that relates to what she's saying, or you can simply comment on what she's saying. You can add to what she said. So let's think about, later we're going to be talking about what kind of needs we have for cooperation and for advancing the community. But here we're talking about the race-related inequities that plague the co-op sector. And I shared the part about we need to approach it from a non-capitalistic way, and we need to fight, resist, if you will, the social conditioning that we have that depends upon myths to keep us going and fighting against each other. And that what we really need is to approach it from the notion of love, belonging, really seeing and accepting each other. And Marie is coming from the same direction, except she gave you some more things to think about. So who wants to talk, volunteer something? Oh, Naima, there you go.
Well, I don't know how relevant this is to that, but it did make me think about discussing a childcare cooperative in very low income community. Something that was talked about, not by myself, but others who were trying to organize, is that what should I say? Violence, normalization of kind of a higher level than it tends to be socially acceptable of punishment of children that I had kind of observed myself, and just wondering, you know, in communities of very high need and low resource, that yeah, there seems to be kind of a normalization of certain practices that I might not feel comfortable having my children in that situation, and I would be kind of concerned for in a liability sense of you know, if we're all watching the children and we don't have the same standards in as far as violence against children, or you know, the perception of that, we might not be on the same page, and
Right.
that makes it complicated. But of course, understanding that does come from, you know, trauma and violence that has been used against us.
Of course, yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Denise?
Yes.
You had your hand up?
Sorry, by mistake. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Does anybody else want to follow up on what we were just discussing and continue it, stretch it out, make it real for us? I mean, what are some of the inequities that you've experienced that have been race related that happened in the co-op sector? And how might we do better? How might we ourselves, as African Americans, as Africans, as Caribbeans, how can we come together and cooperate in planning, strategizing, and then taking action to make sure that that isn't something that we always have to deal with, and create something good, positive, advance from that? How can we evolve this system?
Okay, I'll say something actually. Something I haven't actually formed a formalized cooperative, but I'm working with the principals with a group of creatives. Okay. And one thing I'm trying to get the group to do is really think about being business minded, because I struggle with creatives who just kind of want to get in there, do stuff, not think about a strategy, not think about our mission, our principles, our values, how we really communicate with each other. And that's what this course has helped me to do. So I'm able to kind of, rather than feel like I'm nagging them in terms of, look, it's really important that we're on time. It's really important that we stick to the agenda, that we have minutes, that we do these things because they're, you know, these are documents we can hold ourselves and each other accountable, you know, use them to hold ourselves accountable. So I'm using this course as a barometer and saying to them, look, you know, I'm the academy, this is what I'm learning, rather than me coming in and, you know, well, I feel like I'm nagging, but the truth is someone's got to do it. But but yeah, so I think that's it's I think we underestimate just how valuable it is for us to say, look, this is the learning we need to take from you know, from being structured and from being organized and sticking with the order, because I really struggle with it. Honestly, it's been, even we're talking over each other's voices and we're not capturing the points. I'm like, guys, people are saying really important things here. We need to capture everyone's voices. So can we just all just talk one at a time? Do you know what I mean? So there's just, honestly, it's really tough. It's really tough. So yeah, so I'm just trying to embed the culture of cooperative work in saying to them, look, we all come with these values, because these values that we're trying to work through, we live with them. We know about the struggles. We look at an Afro-futuristic way of working, and, you know, we're looking at the partner approach to that our parents and grandparents used when they first came, you know, the Windrush generation when they came to the UK. And we're trying, you know, I'm selling it, and they're younger. They're the group I'm working with, they're like aged from like, I don't know, 21. The oldest is like 30. So they're old enough to know, but they're young. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's sort of my story anyway, just sort of trying to embed those principles.
Thank you very much, Denise. I appreciate that. I want to say something relatively quickly about this piece where, for instance, Denise, you said old enough to know, and I think what we've learned in the recent American election, United States election, is that we may have vastly overrated what we think people should know, do know, could know. The truth is the educational level in the United States has been dropping for some time. In addition to that, there are subjects that just aren't taught in schools anymore. Critical reasoning is not taught. Logic is no longer taught. You can't even get Latin most of the time, which has so much to do with how you read and the words that end up in your vocabulary. We're not much for doing second and third languages, despite the fact that most of the globe does. What we have done, and I really shouldn't say we, what has happened through politics for money and the wealthy shoring up those politicians who are willing to take money to do bad things that weaken the country. What has happened is that we have created, what has been created is a populace that can be easily controlled, easily manipulated, easily lied to, because you don't have the skill set to reason your way through the things that you are hearing or seeing on TV, or, you know, most popular fiction novels are only written at the 5th grade level. Newspapers are written between the 9th and 11th grade level, and you have to understand what that really may not mean if an 11th grader is no longer reading at what we used to think of as an 11th grade level. So one of the things we have to do to move forward is understand that the picture we're seeing and we're understanding based on our experiences may be different than the image we're seeing. Does that make sense to you? Let me know, because I don't want to keep talking if you're not with me.
You said
Okay.
the image that we're seeing where?
So the image you have in your mind about American society, or if you're in England, your English society, your British society, your Haitian society, the reality that you think is the reality may not be. One assumes that Americans, especially if you're looking from the outside in, one assumes that people are well off, that people are well fed, that people are well educated. None of those three things are true. People can be well educated here. They need only go to the library. There are programs that will teach you how to read for free. They will teach you how to reason for free. You can even learn languages for free. But that doesn't mean that people are doing that. And these days, even going to college is not a guarantee of being able to reason well. I have read emails from professors that have made me wonder what the hell is going on because they're not writing well. So the first thing you might need to do, we all may need to do, is to adjust how we're seeing what we're looking at. Does that make sense? In order to move forward, we have to know, let me put it in a different way. You want to build a house. You need materials to build the house. You already know that. But do you know what materials you need? And when you understand the materials that you need, do you understand the quality of what that those materials need to be? Do you understand that a certain kind of cement can't be used and other kinds can be used? Do you understand? Do you see where I'm going? So what you're looking at, what you're seeing, what you think is true may not in fact be true. The United States has been built well before it was the United States on misogyny, on patriarchy, and on racism. Try to get 10 white people in a row to agree that that's true. You can't even get, you have to increase the number, but 25 Black people in a row to say that oppression is real. There is a boot on the neck, that the policies and laws that are created still relate back to policies and laws that were created when you had Supreme Court judges who were slave owners, presidents who were slave owners, employers, ministers who were slave owners. And if everything proceeded from that, and we've never really shaken it, then we have to understand that all of this change and stuff that we think we're seeing, are we actually seeing it? And what are we seeing? And do we need to break it down and start some things new? Anybody want to comment on any of that?
Patrice, I think what you said is so true. And, you know, at the beginning of this discussion, you were saying in terms of us being radical to respond with love and belonging, acceptance, and seeing each other. I think now we've got to go through a period. I don't know about anybody else, but within my family, I have some folks who are part of that 27%.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, give me guidance on, I don't want, right now, I just need to be in a space with like-minded people because I don't want to be emotional in a response to them that may have long-term effects that I don't want to have because I do love them, but it's like I'm struggling with that. And if that's the case as a result of this election, then I was thinking about how I transfer that to the attempt that we're making to organize communities to unlearn what they know about capitalism in terms of bringing them to having an open mind about what collective collaboration can mean and having having a trust that this co-op thing idea can really work. I don't know about anybody else, but the skepticism has been crazy.
Real. It's been real. And
Yeah.
I want to talk to you some more about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage two things. One, keep taking courses through the academy because they're offering a lot of different courses. And so you can gather some knowledge. And every time someone is presenting you with information, they're usually leaving you contact information so that you can talk to them some more. In the same way, Rick, so sorry to have you leave. Stay in touch. You have the contact information.
Yes, I'm sorry too. I cannot feel any more supportive I do of what you guys are saying and what you're saying tonight, and I feel really bad I have to leave. But I
Don't
have
worry
to teach
about
a
it.
class.
You can always come back. And again, you have my contact information. Stay in touch.
Okay, thank you so much, Patrice.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Good night.
That's what I was going to say is you guys, you have access to my contact information. So record it, put it down, write it down, put it in your phones and use it. Most conversations are not consultations, they're just conversations, and we'll need more and more and more of these conversations anyway. So unless you're hiring me to work for your co-op or you're about to be co-op or something like that, you won't have to pay me to just have a conversation. That said, don't take advantage of that. Don't take advantage of that. But I think you understand where I'm going with it. It's really important that you keep these conversations going. It is really important. There is so much more to be said, to be heard, to be really listened to be reasoned through in order to organize and do this work right. Can I have the next slide, please? What does authentic dialogue mean to you? Challenge yourself to define this term based on your lived experience. Now, we've already been talking, so why am I asking this question so late in the game? Because this isn't where your dialogue ends. You want to leave this space, and you want to go out and be willing to not only be curious, but to engage with that curiosity. You want to ask people questions, and you want to challenge people on what they're saying to you. Now, what they're saying to you might be their truth based on their lived experience. But every time, especially when I'm working with K through 12 kids, I tell them there is my truth and there is the truth. Okay? Donald Trump has been the president of the United States of America. That is the truth. Actually, I was going to say he's a rotten ass president, but that's also the truth and not just my truth. Let me try something else. He will never satisfy anybody in doing the work he does because he doesn't have the skill set to make that happen. Now, that is my truth. There are plenty of people who believe he does, right? My truth, the truth. And there's a lot of what we're dealing with right now, those conversations we need to have, those dialogues that are gonna be, at least in the beginning, far more about individual truth than the truth. They are perspectives that we have all held based on our lived experience. So let's challenge ourselves to go there, but to also go deeper. So authentic dialogue means you are seeing the people with whom you are talking, with whom you are speaking. You are seeing in them their humanity. You are seeing in them their desire to belong. You are seeing in them their curiosity to know you better, to have a better lived experience. You are seeing their vulnerabilities, their strengths, and you are accepting those things. So what does authentic dialogue mean to you going forward? Who just spoke?
It was me. I don't know whether you see my hand from the last time.
No, I have to keep going back and forth in order to see hands. I still don't see the hand. Where is it?
Yeah, I had it up from the last before you put this slide. I just want you to know.
Oh, okay, Pamela, there you go.
Yes, I was going to say that I think that from the last conversation we had about the importance of cooperatives, I think this present political atmosphere should help people that look like us to Sankofa to see how our forefathers got us to this point, how, you know, like Harriet Tubman, like somebody had the bread, somebody had the butter, somebody had the beans, and they put it all together and they began to care, they cared about each other. But what I was going to say, there's a movie, I don't know whether you've seen it, it's called Bad Faith, and it's on Prime, Amazon Prime. And what this shows you the present Christian nationalists that ushered Donald Trump to where he is. But in that movie, they say what they're saying is they don't have a choice. We're going to make them believe us. They don't have it. They're actually saying things like this, which shows you that. And another thing that they're saying, this didn't start with Donald Trump. It didn't start in the 60s. It started in the beginning, as you're saying, and it's never stopped. And they're showing you the progression of how Christian nationalists, the white supremacists, the movement, they're showing you from beginning to end that how they're not going to give people a choice about what they believe.
Right.
And how they're not going to give people room to reject them. And they're saying that, I mean, the movie is called Bad Faith. It's on Amazon Prime. And they're showing you right now how they're going to just overpower everything in the United States. And they're saying that we got to take our nation back, whatever, and things like that. So I think this is why our cooperative movement is important. They're showing you that no one is important. They're saying that no one outside of their movement is important. And no matter, they're saying what they're blatantly, one person, he says, no matter what, you have to win. You just got to win. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what it takes. And what Donald Trump did, he did it to win. And it didn't matter that he did that. So that's what I'm saying. So that's what make what we're doing important, because we'll see that they don't really care about us. And we're going to see more and more how what we're doing is what we have to do if we're going to live as a people and if we're going to succeed.
And yes, and this is why I'm saying what I'm saying about radical, about cooperativism, about collectivism, about community, beloved community. This is why I'm saying these things. We are at a space and time when you don't have time anymore to deliberate. You have time to organize, to strategize, to plan, and to act. That's what we have time for. And that organizing, strategizing, planning, and acting will work so much better if it is under the umbrella of cooperation. The next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Connections a little bit. Yep.
Am I the only one who's not seeing it?
No, I got a little pop-up that said that Pamela was the host. So somehow or another, something got hit that made her the host.
Okay, hang on. Let me see what's going on here.
Sort of going in and out.
Say that again.
I was seeing my internet going in and out a little bit.
Okay.
I lost connection there for a little bit. But can you see my screen now?
I can see you.
Maybe it's because of my internet.
Let me oh, there we go. Now I need the next slide. Oh, no, there, I'm sorry. That was, go back one, you were right. How do we organize for authentic dialogue? What are the steps? What are the priorities? What strategies for success will we use? How will we assess and tweak our work as we progress? How do we interrupt missed moments, attacks, conflict from within? I can tell you that a lot of my workshops and retreats are geared towards white America because everybody else has done their work. It's white America that doesn't know who they are, what their stories are, because they have distanced themselves from their separate cultural identities and simply gone for white. And when you do that, you don't remember anything. You don't remember your languages, your foods, your costumes, your music, your dance. You don't remember your stories. So you're absent all history except for what it is to be white. And the problem with what it is to be white is that you don't really have the history there either because it was designed for privilege. And privilege means you don't have to look at it or learn about it or know it. You just have to benefit from it. And so the healing that's necessary primarily has to come from them. And I'm taking a page from James Baldwin's book, The Fire, next time, when he says that Black folks may need to be white people's mirror because we have arguably the most intimate relationship with them throughout history. So not everybody is going to be on board with that. There are other ways to organize for authentic dialogue as well. But part of what we have to do if we're going to survive and thrive is begin a healing process for them. Because they have shown over these hundreds of years that even when we do go our own way and build, create, survive, thrive, they get mad and come and want to burn it all down. So we do have to also work on their willingness and ability, and then willingness to heal. That said, We have to be in the right space to work for ourselves, to cooperate for ourselves, and or to work with white people. So what are those steps going to be? What are the priorities? And what are the strategies for success? How will we assess and tweak? And you don't have to answer all of this right now, but you need to think about it. You need to start challenging the people that you're working with to think about it and to answer these questions, because you're going to have to answer them in order to, in fact, organize. When I work, I can tell you that when I work with white Americans, usually they're cooperators, food co-op folk. One of the first things I say is it's about love. And then I follow that with, that doesn't mean I'm going to accept your fragility, not in this space. I'll be honest. I'll expect you to be honest, but I don't want to have to fight your tears. I don't want to have to address questions that you should have already answered for yourself. This is not a moment for fragility. I don't know what you want to say to each other or to white people, but you do need to have those conversations. Because as you organize all of these things, steps and priorities and strategies, assessing and tweaking, and you will come under fire. You're going to come under fire. So, and it won't just be from white people. Conflict from within. Tim Scott went around saying there's no such thing as racism in America. He's Black. He's Black. And he's saying that. Now, one has to believe that he actually knows better, but he's not saying any different. So what are you going to do? Next slide. Moving from dialogue to action. Creating systems of habits that move us forward. Because if we're going to do this, if we're going to organize and do all of this, then what we have to do, it's about systems. The reason we are where we are is because of the systems that were created at the beginning. And they haven't changed all that much. Prisons are still full of mostly Black people. And Project 2025 wants to use the 14th Amendment, mostly the second clause about birthright citizenship, to impact immigration. The problem is, from my perspective, the 14th Amendment is all about Black people, former slaves, their progeny in perpetuity. All of the 14th Amendment was brought about by Black people and making right the wrongs, or trying to make right some of the wrongs. So if you're going to use that for immigration, what may happen is they stretch it, because that's what we always do in politics and everything else. Well, what else can it be used for? So what are your thoughts on creating cooperative communities and creating this habit, followed by this habit, followed by this habit, that creates a system that, when we honor the system, when we diligently do those, follow those habits through, get us where we say we want to be. What are your thoughts on how we make that happen? Let's talk about this for a while, at least 20 minutes.
This is Marie. I think that one of the things we have to do is to, like you say, organize, organize, and organize, because that same mother of mine, she was at Fisk University teaching, and so was my father. because they were college educated. Now, granted, the monies came from the Department of Education or the Department of War or something like that. I forgot which one it was. But they decided back in the 1950s that they had to professionalize the colored schools. So what they did was that they gave money to the historically Black universities to educate the local, so that the teachers and the professors and the students would educate the local high school and elementary school teachers, because it was decided that they wanted to professionalize this labor force. Now, I think that the same kind of thinking, I think, needs to be brought into cooperativism, where we do not let Black businesses or Black co-ops go out of business, but we have to organize so that we know they exist. We have to organize so that there are processes by which someone raises their hand and says, hey, we need help. So where are those lawyers for them? Where are those accountants? Where are those financial people that can come in and help them get their books together and strategize and teach those business systems that they need? I think something, I don't want to say grand, but I just think something very ubiquitous like that has to come into existence.
I don't disagree. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Come on. Speak up. Really? Is it because you're thinking, or you really can't think of anything to talk about within this subject? How about, what do you think needs to be changed? So if you're creating a system of habits that with discipline you follow and carry forward, what do you think some of those habits or behaviors are that we need to start doing?
I think, as well as organizing, planning, smart planning, making sure that we're strategizing all the time. I think we've got to keep tabs on where we're trying to go, so that those businesses that do kind of end up sort of folding too soon don't fold, because what happens is we lose sight of what we're trying to do, or we just not keeping check on things, or, you know, because there's no reason why these businesses shouldn't. I mean, I know there are businesses that existed for a long time and their own still in place, but where I live, a lot of Black businesses tend to fade out quite quickly. I mean, I know that it's hard for businesses regardless, but with Black businesses, I'd like to see a really strong Black business with, you know, generations to come. Do you know what I mean? It's still standing and still going strong. Do you know what I mean? So the only way we get to do that is by being really focused on milestones and smart planning and all of that. And just
so how do we
like,
get people to the table?
Education, isn't it? It's these kinds of courses. It's, you know, what we're trying to do, tell people, you know, that we've got to be consistent in things and dealing with the lows and going with the highs and not just riding on the wave of the good times. You know what I mean? Pushing through that when things aren't exactly how they want them to be, but just pushing through the hard times, knowing that there's by working together, we can make that difference and be there for the long term.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Oh, go ahead. Karita's got her hand up. I'll yield to Karita.
Okay, Karita.
I'd like to see more creation or planning around spaces to have conversations, particularly the conversations that I feel like if we had been having them for the last 20 years would not have yielded this political result. Where, like, my dad once said that in the 80s, parents did us a disservice by trying to teach us to be colorblind and not teaching us to recognize the value of the differences in our cultures and how to work together better. So I would love to see people working on that type of a system.
And let me make a suggestion to you all, because that's really one of the primary steps that has to be had so that everyone can get on the same page. The best place to start having those are in your homes. And you should have people carpool to come to the meetings. You understand where I'm going with that?
Yes, drive time conversation is rich.
Drive
As well as
conversation is rich. Having the meetings in people's homes is rich. Now you're gonna have to set some house rules. Some things are okay, some things are not okay, and it's your home. So you may need to stretch yourself, but at the same time, it's your home. You know what I mean? And do it as a potluck. Have people bring food and drink to be non-alcoholic, so that you can have a great discussion. And at every meeting, bring an agenda and stick to the agenda, because that's how you move forward. That's how you make progress on the discussion and move through the various phases. Anybody else?
I think it's not just planning that we need, but also legacy planning. That's one thing that you will see in the movie on Prime, that our counterparts, they're always preparing their youth to take the mantle, right? Because they know they're going to die out, but they don't want their vision, their purpose, and their goals to die out. That's why we're in this political situation that we're in, because they've set it up like 50, 60, 70, 100 or something like that years ago. And I think Black people can use a lot of that. So when I say legacy planning, the problem with legacy planning for Black people, because of the condition and economics of our race at this time, how do we make what people should do, how do we make it attractive to them? Especially if we're talking about the youth, because there are so very many other organizations that can make going the opposite way attractive. And when I say attractive, people are looking for economic satisfaction. You know, people have to take care of themselves. They have to take care of their families. They have dreams, they have hopes, they have things that they need. So if we want youth to follow, yes, we can teach people, but then we have the competition that have the resources. You know, if you want the big car, you want the big name, you want the big house. Some people say that should not be more important than our purpose. That may be true, but that's not how capitalism works. Capitalism versus cooperative.
Okay, now stop there for just a second. Stop there for just a second. Because that's the step that you need to work on. Capitalism is what has always been pushed.
Mm-hmm.
But is capitalism what should be getting pushed?
No, it should not. It should not be getting pushed.
So many of your conversations need to be around.
If we can make what we don't want to push capitalism, but I'll give you an example. I just came from the Black Urban Growers Conference in Houston, Texas. And in Houston, Texas, what they were showing were movies about how Black people move forward, how they're cooperating. But what I'm saying is the movies showed you the value of Black people. It made it attractive. There were so many youth in there. There were so many youth in the movies. They showed the value of being Black, the value of how we can move forward. They, you know, they have to make it attractive so that they'll want it, not through capitalism, but a lot of but however we need to do it, we have to draw the youth in, and that's what happened at the Black Urban Grower. So
I understand what I'm saying is when I said what I said about capitalism, it was a beginning statement.
mm-hmm.
If you want people to learn about the value of cooperation over capitalism, then you have to start the gathering, and where you're talking about history and education and so forth and so on. There was a time when education was highly respected in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that way anymore.
Right.
It's still valued in a way, but it's valued now around money.
Mm-hmm.
You can earn more money if, sort of a thing. Well, first of all, that's not necessarily true, especially if you're Black.
Mm-hmm.
Two, learning has never been just about money. It's for the soul, it's for the spirit, it's for the community, it's for helping each other, it is for cooperation. And that part is education. So that's about at home, it's about the church, it's about at school, it's about conversations with Black teachers, it's about having community events around it where children are exposed to cooperative activities and events. It's about teaching them slowly but surely as they grow that this is the system that they want to do. And they have to learn that also by the example that their adults set for them. So this is a long-term thing. This is about us planting all of the seeds. We may not be able to sit under the oak tree, right? But we can plant the seeds and organize for the legacy work.
Absolutely.
We can do that. And that's what we need to do. And we have to, that the dialogue has to be about setting the priorities. So one is, the first step is figuring out where we want to go and what the steps are that we think we need in order to get there. The second step is figuring out how we're going to order those steps. What comes first, what comes second, what comes third. The third step is teaching us that we're flexible. And if something needs to move around, then we need to do that. The fourth step is making sure that everybody gets to have a voice. It doesn't mean that everybody gets to have their way, because people get confused about that when it comes to democracy and cooperation. Having a say doesn't mean having your way. It means you get the privilege of being listened to, of being seen, respected. But it also means you have to be mature enough, emotionally mature enough, to accept that your way may not be the way that everybody wants to go. But those are all lessons. That's all education. Everything is education. And that's how we move forward together. That makes sense?
I do agree.
It's absolutely important, but how we do it and the order in which we do it is just as important, because this is a structure that we're building. And when you build a structure, the foundation is crucial. And every step after that is crucial, because you want the structure to not only be built, but to last and to house many of us through the years and to be able to be added to. Can you give me the next slide, please? New ideas for advancing economic progress in communities of color, types of businesses, programs, community associations, etc. And I'm going to read this about beloved community because this is my take on the beloved community, and where we see each other, we're curious about each other, we accept each other, we support community and member endeavors. We work together toward common causes and to help each other achieve individual dreams. We encourage and uplift. We resolve differences by building, not destroying relationships. When one hurts, we all hurt. Love and strength of community is our end game. Keeping that in mind, what are some new ideas for advancing economic progress in communities of color? What are the types of businesses, programs, community associations? What will be the makeup of our cooperative community of color? Anyone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What will the makeup of our community of color be? We're talking about new ideas. We're going to be discussing new ideas for advancing economic progress in communities of color. And that means types of businesses, types of programs, types of community associations, the things that make a community work. Absolutely, Denise. So what's the makeup? What is that structure built of, built upon, and what businesses and programs and community associations, what will be there? What's going to make it run, work? What will sustain it? What will keep it exciting?
Well, can I share what we're doing, what I'm doing with a group of creatives? So we're trying this idea out where we've developed I guess it's a platform where we're holding, I guess, what we call them, family events. So it's almost like a live party where we are building a YouTube platform using creatives who are DJs, singers, digital, graphic designers, live painters, and we video these sort of 4-hour events where we create social media content for the young people who are artists to promote their artistry. And then the idea is that we build this platform. They all work together on different ideas. Every other month we're having these events, and then we're looking at branding opportunities in terms of, because branding and I'm learning about branding and brand activation, because music and branding is a big business. Anybody in music apparently who wants to be independent, in particular, independent artists need to know about getting involved with brand stuff. So I'm learning that. We're all learning that together. So we've done 4 events so far, and yeah, they're going really well. But we have, and this is what I'm saying, I'm planning with these young creatives about how we can develop this idea into a business. And the idea is based on my family kind of, my mom passed away, 20 years ago now, and we still get together as a family. And every time we get together, there's music, dance. Well, the kids are all talented. They display all their art, what they do. They just always show what they do best, and dancing and singing and poetry and all sorts. So we've captivated this. We call it the family experience. And we have a theme every time we do it. The first theme was all about outdoors. Everybody had to wear like grounded colors, green, brown. Then we had, anyway, fast forward. One of my son is one of the artists, and he's performing with a 65-piece orchestra next year. And it's a big event in Birmingham, in Birmingham. And so we're capitalizing on that event, and we're going to have a particular family event called, what are we calling it again? The prom night. So we're going to build social media content around this big event that he's part of, and set up, have a 4-hour social media content creation event. and use that social media to promote him with a brand opportunity, you know what I mean, up to that date in next April when he's performing with this big live show. So yeah, so that's we're experimenting, and the idea, the cooperative idea, is that everyone's bringing their skills. We all put a bit of money in to pay for the venue, and we all chip in our skills and our time and our resources, you know, for each time. So so that's what we're doing. If that makes sense.
Makes sense. What about anybody else want to add to that?
Can I? So, this is Tamika. So I don't think I have a specific answer to this question. I think what I want to say is, in general, I think however we build this, it has to be built really centering more of those voices that don't get heard. So if we think about between Black and white people, the voices that don't get heard are Black people's voices, right? When you think about between men and women, the voices that don't get heard are typically women. When you think about between the those in leadership positions and those who are subordinates, the leaders' voices get heard. When you think about youth and elders, the youth voice doesn't get heard, right? So when we talk about building this future where you want the youth to take over, I think the enemy, whatever you want to call it, the devil, the great deceivers, right, are able to get to the youth because they're able to speak to what it is that they want and they need. And when you're talking about leaders, youth leaders don't want typically exactly the same thing that the youth that you want access to want. What the youth leaders want their voices to be heard and want to feel respected by their elders, right? And so when you get into these environments where often it's one versus the other, right? And the elders are trying to figure out how to entice the youth. But if you're not allowing the youth to have their voices heard, right, that's where you sometimes get into these issues of not being able to understand how to entice them. You entice them by listening to them. You entice them by ensuring that whatever it is that they need, or that their needs are, they're being met. And at least to the extent that you can. Yeah, so I think in terms of building this new collective, I do think it's built on the way that we do business with each other, the way that we interact with each other, but that first has to start with addressing the issue of not listening to voices that get more marginalized and focusing more on centering those to at least address what those needs are, because ultimately those are the groups that you're relying on for your future, right? Those are the ones that you need for the future. So if you need them, you need to center them. To me, that's the first building block.
I agree. Anyone else? Anyone want to build on that or add something?
So I think that's kind of similar to what I was thinking. There are a few organizations that I really admire, especially in the mutual aid space. And I think, and also my community foundation, I really have enjoyed working with them because they have unhoused people, and people who live in housing projects, undocumented people. All of those people are represented, parents of young children, and they also empower high school students in their own decision-making body and give them a budget to prioritize their needs as high school students, and then also have a similarly diverse board, and just make sure that those people who are kind of representing unhoused community and things, that they're getting information from people who live in where they live, and they're able to authentically, they have these relationships built already with these communities that are underserved, and they're able to get them to turn out to events and really get what they want, what do they need from those individuals, in a way that they elaborate more than just having like a simple survey. You're really getting a lot of valuable feedback about how to what they think would improve their own situation. So yeah, and I myself was like, I don't feel like I'm connected enough to the youth in my community. So I started volunteering at the high school. And I feel like, you know, when those type of opportunities present themselves, to try to make yourself available for them.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Anybody else? We're going to stop in 5 minutes. I will give an additional 5-minute spiel, and then we'll begin to close it down and talk to you about making sure that you fill out exit surveys and all of that. So let's go on for another 5 to 7 minutes. Anyone else want to excuse me, offer something up for this? I'm really happy that we're having this conversation and sharing out. You know, one of the worst things that can happen is for people to have all kinds of ideas and feel that there's no pot for them to put them in, where they can be exchanged and heard and considered. That's why the Academy is so important. So I really appreciate your guys' willingness to share. So I'm sorry, Denise. This is from Denise. So the group I work with is based on marginalized groups, Black artists who struggle with developing their careers, struggle to access public funds to develop their artistry. We've looked at the research to inform what we're doing when working with young artists. And then we're working on developing a cooperative model we can share as an example for other artists to follow. That was in the chat. Does anybody else want to share? Come on, speak up. I'd love to hear from someone that hasn't spoken. Antonisha, there's Carolyn, Ramona, Paulette, Marsha, Joshua. Anybody have anything else to add?
I think that this is a level of consideration that you don't really spend time on. And even though we know we should, and I think discussions like this really do help, because I know for myself, everything I do is very nuts and bolts. And even if I was to take the time to ask, ask my why, it's still a 1 sentence, 2 sentence. So it never goes into this level of thinking and consideration. There's not thinking, but consideration. It's almost like these are things I know intuitively and I know in my bones, but to be able to articulate them really does take time.
Yes. Which is why, as much as possible, we should plan sessions like this. It's important to participate in the Academy, but you can also do these things away from the Academy. Maybe on a smaller scale, have 3 or 4 people over to the house or meet at the local public library. There might be space at a local campus that will let you use that space to have a dialogue. They may even be willing to sponsor the dialogue. There are ways to do this and encourage those conversations. And even if hopefully a lot of these people will come together and you won't have to charge money for them to come together. But there are also ways to do that. If you get food donated from local places, there are a lot of places that are willing to donate because they're excited about this kind of thing happening as well. Black-owned businesses, restaurants, all of that, where, you know, Black-owned bookstores, these places exist, and they may very well be willing to help you make that happen. A Black-owned bookstore might have some space where you can sit with, you know, up to 10 people, maybe fewer, right? You can sit down and have these conversations. But these conversations and the sharing of time and space and ideas, it's really, really important. So I hope that if you don't take anything else away from today, you take that away. That you operate in a space of consideration for opening up more dialogue about this, but always remembering that you need to reach a time when you're taking it from dialogue to action, or dialogue to planning, planning to action. Anybody else?
This is Marcia, and
Hi, Marcia.
hi. I just want to say that I'm very excited about tonight. I am very encouraged and ready to do the let's get together a few people at a time. I am willing to open up my place for a few people. I am willing to buy, I don't cook, but I'll buy some food, you know, for people to have, because I know that draws people. But I have really been thinking about the whole issue of cooperatives and how do I get started? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? We talk to people in bits and pieces. However, how to actually get something going. And I just love the idea of just, you know, gathering, you know, with each other. We have always done that as a people. That's how we survived, you know, the Deep South and all the lynchings and all the things that has happened to us. We have always gathered together and talked things over, you know, and we have lost that because there's so many distractions that have told us, I believe, in my humble opinion, that they had a better way. And if you want to really do something in your community, you write, you know, you all fill out this grant application. And I'm of the mind that we don't need a grant. We just need to get together. So I am again encouraged, and I am actually, when I have my back surgery, I'm going to do that. I'm going to set a meeting with a few people that I know, and I'm going to pick their brains, and they're going to all be intergenerational. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I want to give you some information that you guys should each have. I don't know if this will work for people who are outside of the United States. If it doesn't, you just let me know, and I will set time aside to work with you as best I can in terms of time. That's not what I wanted. I need, there we go. Sorry, I have to turn on my, there we go. I have to turn on my Wi-Fi so that I can give you what I'm telling you you need to do. Okay. It's called FCI. It's the Food Co-op Initiative. Now, theirs are about food co-ops. You guys, some of you are talking about other kinds of co-ops, but what I want you to do is go on their website, and if you all have something to write with, https:// FCI.coop, on that website, you will find all manner of articles and posts and newsletters and a manual on starting a co-op. If you want to start a co-op, go there and get that information. And if necessary, reach out to somebody there like JQ Hanna. Now, this is a white-led organization. That said, they work with another organization that is also white-led, but this is the work that they do. When I say this is the work they do, I mean they are so allied with what Black folks are doing and what they need to be doing that they have made space at the up and coming conferences for the first day of the conference is just for Black people, just for us. The classes that day, the workshops, there are usually excursions, and the dialogue gets real fast. And then the next day, so like on a Thursday, that would be the day for everyone to come together who is Black and taking part in the Black only piece of the conference. And then Friday and Saturday, everybody is doing everything. But they do that because they understand that having a separate space is important. They understand that our realities are different. And they understand that even when other people, when white people say that they are allies, that sometimes those white people don't understand what it means to be an ally. And so they work their best to make sure that we have what we need. And they always listen to suggestions and ideas. They're always up with a listening ear. So right now, all you need to do is go on their website and see what they have that you can use in your planning and in your conversation. If you have
Can you
questions.
put it in the chat? Can you put that information, because I missed it. Could you put the information in the chat so it's clearer?
Yes, I can. I want you guys to do that. And also you should know that their work is done by grants. They don't charge, like the food co-ops that are forming, they don't charge those co-ops for all of the work and the consulting that they do with them. FCI Food Co-op Initiative. Whoops, not FOD, food. Okay, HTTPS colon / FCI.coop.
Hi, I missed your contact information. Can you share that?
Yes, I meant to tell you, that the slides can be shared. I wanted to make sure that the Academy knows that the slides can be shared.
Okay. I think that they will share it with the people today.
But just in case, Here's my phone number, 607-862-6224. Text only, because I usually have the ringer turned off. But I respond to texts and I respond to emails usually within 24 hours. You catch me on a good day, I respond to them right away.
Thank you. I had a question. If I have been in some of the spaces where we had a lot of discussions, history, and after like a dozen discussions, I didn't feel like they were moving towards action. Do you have any suggestions as far as having more action-oriented gatherings?
Yes. But I'm going to give you just a really short and quick, because it's already 8 o'clock and I think that means we have to go. First, be brave and be willing to challenge people on what they're not doing as much as you are praising them on what they are doing. So if they're just talking, you be sure to say, this is great, it is fantastic. Now let's start making some plans for turning our talk into action. And if it comes down to it, you, as an individual, reach out to people you know are movers and shakers and who will go to action. And you start that ball rolling yourself. That does not mean sacrifice yourself. You know what I mean?
I do.
Okay. Okay. And stay in touch with me.
Okay,
There's
thank
always
you.
more to talk about and ways to get it done. Anybody else with a last minute question?
I don't have a
Nope.
question, but
Okay.
I would jump in that we met at FCI's Up and Coming, I think 2 years ago. And every time I see you present, I really enjoy it. I think I mentioned to you, I really liked your intonation when you were presenting what is healthy. So thank you so much for continuing to do the work you do.
I so appreciate hearing that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It goes a long, long way. Because sometimes I don't know if I want to quit or smack somebody.
I know that feeling.
So it helps. it helps. So let me tell you, I'm going to end on this. I love doing this work, and I am shifting how I do this work and the message, because I think we've been on the wrong path for too long now. But I will continue to do this piece of the work. And I so admire and respect people who are willing to join in for courses like this and be willing to learn something they maybe didn't know, hear something they hadn't heard before, or hear it given with a twist, and then chime in themselves. You guys have no idea how much I respect you and the courage it takes to be a part of this movement. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking up. If you didn't speak up, I appreciate you anyway. Because I know that you were listening and you're going to do with that. And that's just fine with me. So again, thank you for being here. I love you so much. And here's to taking this forward and kicking butt. The phone number is, okay, I'll share it. Don't cut us off yet. chat. Here's the phone number.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this session. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I say anytime,
So
but
do
I
I.
realize,
Thank you.
but you stay in touch with me and you get the benefit of the conversation and stuff that I might put out, but just not in this form. I think this is only done twice a year.
Yeah, the Co-op Academy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So there's my phone number. Text, remember? Text. And you know what? Let me go ahead and put in the email.